Hello and good morning. Welcome to today's class. Um, I hope you had a very good night. I hope you're well rested. I hope you took out time to go through your notes from yesterday, and I hope you're ready for this class this morning. So I've
Yes,
been seeing
please.
all your chats. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so like I said yesterday, we're going to take typography today, which if you look at the screen, you see type, right? But before we do that, let's just do a short recap of yesterday. So we talked about the principles of design. So now I would like you to understand something. So in the principles and in the fundamentals, if you notice, you see that there are some things that were repeated, like like we had balance in principles and balance in fundamentals. Interestingly, every part of design has its own principles. So, like we'll be talking about typography today, typography has its own principles. And when we talk about colors, you also see that colors have its own principles because these principles are meant to guide you. Then, tomorrow, where we'll be talking about layout and composition, you also see that layout and composition has their own set of principles. And you might get to see balance again, or repetition, or hierarchy. In fact, hierarchy, you see hierarchy in color, you see hierarchy in typography, you see hierarchy in layout and composition as well. So let's quickly run through what we did yesterday. So principles of design, right? And we talked about how unity creates uniformity in your design, brings everything unified. And I told you about the author, Alex White, who talked about the achieve to achieve visual unity being the main goal of graphic design. And he stated that when all elements are in agreement, which means the elements have to agree, he said that then the design is considered unified. And we all agreed, right? Then we moved on to the samples because you can be unified in color, can be unified in size, right? And it can be unified in different ways, different elements and different things like that. Then we talked about balance, and we say balance is having the objects of either the same weight or different weights, where we talked about symmetrical and asymmetrical arrangements. Remember, where we had to use the example of the business card where people were choosing between A and card B yesterday. Yeah, so this is symmetrical and this is asymmetrical. Then hierarchy. I remember somebody asking the difference between hierarchy and emphasis yesterday. And I told you how hierarchy is majorly a way to visually rank your elements. So hierarchy is just give rank. What is more important? What follows? You know, the way you write in your notes where you have the title, you have the subtitle, and then the notes. That's what hierarchy does, right? Now, this is a very simple and clear example of hierarchy, and I showed you a few designs yesterday to explain all of this. On the left, no hierarchy, and on the right, we have hierarchy, which is plain and easy to see, right? Now, we talked about contrast, and I mentioned that contrast helps for readability, for legibility, and for accessibility. So contrast has like a little closeness to hierarchy. And also, I also mentioned that all the principles work together. No one principle is working in isolation. In every design that communicates, every principle is actively working. Okay. Now, contrast could be in weight, or could be in size, could be in color. And I said it's just basically the difference between light and dark, thin and thick, small or big, bright and dull. So color, size, weight plays a part in contrast. Then we see contrast in shape, contrast in color, contrast in scale. Remember, scale is size. Some other people call it proportion. Contrast in layout. We'll talk about layout tomorrow, so you're gonna enjoy that class. Whoever is drawing on my screen, please do not do that. It's distracting. Thank you. Okay. Then we move to emphasis, where we said it also size, weight, position, color, shape, and style. Remember the design I showed you yesterday? I showed you how we had hierarchy and we had emphasis. I showed you the difference when I think it was Ayodiji that asked that question yesterday, right? Now, you see the difference. See how emphasis is being brought to the red balls or the red shapes in every of the slides. Emphasis simply helps you to create focal point, okay? Then, of course, scale. Remember, like I said, scale or proportion. It is all about sizing. Big, small, medium, very big, or very small. It's up to you. And it's also dependent on your kind of design or the message you're trying to communicate. So scale can help hierarchy. Scale can also help contrast. Scale can also help balance. And scale can also help emphasis. So you see how they all work hand in hand. There's no one element or no one principle that I've mentioned now that doesn't have a connection to the other. So you see to the scale. Now, if you look at the one for size, you see it's balanced. But then we're talking about scale. Look at that of ratio. There's a balance, there's unity. You see? Look at the one for division. You see that there's hierarchy. Exactly. Every of the principle work hand in hand. Okay. Then we went on to talk about repetition. Remember, I said repetition is mostly used for patterns. Those Ankara designs that you used to see are simply repetition. The African patterns that you see are repetition. Ankara is a very simple example. Tie and dye uses repetition as well. Okay, so repetition is used to create patterns, is used to create a repetitive nature in the design. Just repeat an element, maybe the text, maybe repeat a color, maybe repeat a shape or a line. All right. Now you can see this. It's as clear and simple as it can get. And it says there, repetition changes perspective. Yes, it does. Then one of my favorites, or should I say most favorite, white space. Why is white space my favorite? Because it doesn't have to be white. A color space can be white space. Black space can be white space. Just know that it's an effective negative space. That's what it is. I know you might be thinking, and this page is white. Yeah, but then the page also has white space. But look at this. Do you see white space? I'm sure you do. So you get it now. So white space is just a negative space that is effective. You know, when you hear the word negative, it already looks like, oh, okay, this is bad. But then adding effective to negative, it makes sense because space is important for the design. It's important for communication. It's important for balance. Important for contrast. It's also important for unity. So, yeah. Then we talked about why do all the principles matter, and I explained to you that they help to engage your audience. They help to keep your design attractive. They help to communicate effectively when you want to communicate. Then we moved into the fundamentals of design. Okay, so in the chat box, can somebody Just help me. Okay, somebody said I should revisit emphasis. Please, doesn't hierarchy and contrast have similarities? So I said they all have similarities because they work hand in hand. No two um no two principles do the same thing, right? One does what helps the other to function properly. Do you get it? So hierarchy is different from contrast. Hierarchy is order of ranking. I just told you the title, the subtitle, and the text. That is hierarchy. Contrast can be in size. Contrast can be in color. Contrast can be in weight or in style. Okay. Then um, I would just quickly talk about emphasis again before we go into the design fundamentals. Now, emphasis. So I said emphasis helps you create a focal point on your design. Imagine you enter a room, a very big and wide room. Everywhere is painted white. And when you look in front of you, there's a small frame on the wall that is red. The frame is red. Everything on the frame is red. But the entire space in the whole room is white. That frame that is red is the focal point. And what does that mean? That frame is what the emphasis is on. The person that has that room or whoever painted or decorated the room to be that way didn't plan for you to see the white. The plan was for you to see the red. That is why it was emphasized. That is why it had a different color. That is what emphasis is. Okay? I hope I've been able to answer that question. Okay, so yeah, you're welcome, peace. Okay, so fundamentals of design. So I will just throw this to the class before. Let me be sure that you remember the fundamentals. Mention one fundamental of design in the chat. Just one. Just type it. Let me see. If line, everybody typing line, line, line. Okay, shape, yeah. Form, very good. Balance, yeah. Texture, nice. Line, shapes, form, texture, perfect. Hierarchy. Hierarchy is not a fundamental. Hierarchy is a principle. Color theory is a branch on its own. Okay, so I see most of you got it. So balance, shape, yeah, balance, rule of thoughts. Nice one, David. Layout is a different topic entirely. Okay, so let's go quickly to the recap. Now, balance. See all these are all the fundamentals from the scribbled lines to the triangle shape to the form on the circle that gives it a shadow through light and perspective, and the texture on the square shape, and the line that creates balance. Those are the five of them: line, shape, form, texture, and balance. Okay? Then we quickly go to line. And I remember telling you that line is just a shape that connects 2 points together. And it can be in different weights and in different size and in different styles. Like you can see here, we have dotted lines, dashed lines, sorry, and we have scribble, that's the wavy line, and we have the lines with an arrow, and then the 2 points touching each other here. Then I gave you an example how lines can be used for a drawing, an illustration, for patterns. And I told you how important line is for very serious organizational stuff. Look at this, the chart here. And I also mentioned that you need to be cautious and pay attention to the kind of lines you use. And I said, imagine if this textured line is used on this organizational chart. Someone else will say the organization is not serious. That's how important line is. That's how important these fundamentals are in communication, right? Remember, graphic design is meant to communicate. Okay. Now, yeah, so lines work with weight, color, texture, and style. Then shape. I told you trapezium, circles, squares, triangles, kites, rectangles, just name it. All the kind of shapes you can think of, they fall into this category. Interestingly, it can be geometric or organic. I remember mentioning amoeba and some other biological shapes that we knew in the past, right? Now, see geometric. They look to have perfect edges. Look at the star, look at the circle, look at the triangle. But the organic shapes, they have very interesting settings. Sorry about that. So geometric are just regular shapes, and organic are shapes that are free form, which means you could just take your hand and just draw any kind of shape, and it's geometric. Now, I told you how it is seen everywhere, from the stop sign to the icons on your phone to the arts in the galleries and the museums, right? Then we checked, I remember we had to calculate how many shapes were in this screen on this website here. And some people were having fun with it when they said 7, 6, we had a lot of numbers. So that's easy to understand. Then we talked about form. And I told you how form can either be 3D or illustrated. So what form does is it helps a shape become three-dimensional, right? So it helps a shape becomes three-dimensional. And any sculpture or architecture has form. And I remember always mentioning your phone, your mobile phones, because I know it's close to you. That if you carry your mobile phones and you look at it, you see that if you see the top part and one side of it, which gives you a two-dimensional view. Remember when I was explaining two-dimension and three-dimension to someone yesterday, right? That gives you a two-dimensional view. Now, but if you put the phone in a place where you can see the three sides, you can see the front, you can see the right side, you can probably see the top or the back, it becomes three-dimensional. What does that mean? It has form. Okay. Now, for real objects, which like the first picture here, I told you how it's it has shadow because it's real. And the flat one, which is the second object, the second drawing, the form was created because we added light, shadow, and perspective. And I gave you this example, how if this ball was as flat as this one here, it wouldn't make any sense. But form is what creates it to now consider to be called a ball. Do you get? Because form creates realism. And I showed you how we can create that um, on a flat design, which is this one on the right. And we talked about this interesting menu where shadow just makes the cup feel like it's sitting. Meanwhile, without shadow, it should be floating. Okay. Then texture. And I remember making a joke of you not touching a cactus plant because of the textured edges. Because a real cactus plant should not be touched with bare hands. Okay. Anyway, but you get the idea. It has texture. So two-dimensional objects have texture. Three-dimensional objects have texture. I remember saying, touch your table, touch your wall, touch the surface of your phone, the surface of your seat, or even your clothes. You feel texture. And that's because texture can be smooth, texture can be rough, texture can be hard, or even soft, depending on the elements at play. Depends if it's a cotton material. Depends if it's a screeded wall. depends if it's something, a wood, you know, any kind of element that is at play has its own kind of texture. Then I told you how too much of texture would actually kill your design. You know, like I was telling you guys about adding too much salt to your spaghetti, you would not be able to eat it almost straight away. The same thing happens when you put too much texture or too much of any of the fundamental on your design, it becomes overwhelming. And when it becomes overwhelming, the audience does not want to look at it twice, which means that they will not be able to get the information you're trying to communicate. And in other words, that design has failed because design is meant to communicate. Now, I think yesterday I said this about 3 times that the graphic designer is the eye of the community because you're effective and you get to see what other people do not see. So where people look and just see something very basic and simple, the designer is looking and seeing something different. Why? Because as a designer, you are supposed to look beyond what you see. Okay? So then balance, of course, a repeated name came in from the principles and still came in here. Balance is a very popular guy. So negative space, color, numbers, sizes. Balance is very important. Then this was very fun when we had to decide symmetrical or asymmetrical yesterday. And then, of course, rule of thirds. And I think Tessie asked how rule of thirds play in photography, and I gave a brief explanation on that, how it is just to help you. The grids are just to help you to be able to decide where you want to place your image. And I also mentioned that this feature is on all your mobile phones, so your phone camera. Okay. Then the frame down here with the perfect placement of the image, we could just put our perfect text on the right hand side and we have a very good design. Then putting it all together, the big picture. So I showed you, and I said, I think it was Queen that asked that, do you have to design and have each and be checking each element as they come into play or each principle and fundamental? And I remember saying, you don't have to have a checklist for these principles or fundamentals because they come into play. What you do is get your design ready. Make sure your design is communicating. In your mind, make sure there's contrast. In your mind, make sure the elements are balanced. While you're doing all of that, by the time you're done with the design, you look at it again, and then you can decide what I take off or what I add. Is there enough white space or should I add more? Right? So then we had to go through these designs to talk about the elements and the fundamentals and the principles that we see that the designs carry. And that was very, and then we had question and answer, and that was it for that, right? So I hope everyone is clear.
Yes.
Question. Okay,
Yes.
there's a question from YouTube.
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay, great. Let me quickly answer this question from YouTube. It says, value isn't a fundamental part of design, is it? No, value is not a fundamental, but value plays a role. And value is found under color, which is part of what we talk about today. Okay. So when we move into color from typography, you get to you get to understand. Okay. So now let's go quickly into what we're talking about today. Type. If you look at the screen, you see type, and then you see typography. So the word typography is gotten from type. Now you ask, what is typography? Before I answer that question, let me tell you a little thing about typography. Typography is everywhere you look, from the product, from the packaging of your favorite products to the books you read to chatting on your phone. You use typography to updating your status to tweeting. You use typography to even pass a message from one person to another. The use of typography comes into play. In other words, typography is everywhere, right? Now, you might be asking, what is typography? It is very simple. It is just the style or appearance of text. The style or appearance of text can also be referred to as the art of working with text, right? So some people can actually be a typography designer. They are strictly based in typography. They're based in type. They're based in working with text. So you see this all the time, like I said. See, on the stop sign on the road when you're driving by or when you're in a vehicle or something, it has typography. The bumper stickers that you see, baby on board, I love dogs, I'm a cat person, blah, blah, blah. They are all typography. Your favorite snack, whatever it is has typography on it. Okay. So now fonts is a part of typography. You might be wondering, why did the name change? So typography is a family name. Font comes to the individual level. So let's say Gilroy. Gilroy is the name of a font. Let's say Gotham, Century Gothic, Futura, Montserrat. Name them. They're all types. They're all names of fonts. They are not types of fonts. Types of fonts is another category. The names of fonts comes under the different types of fonts. Okay. Now, so typography can actually be very intimidating. It can be very intimidating. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be. Why? Because in typography, less is more. I mentioned that yesterday. Less is more. And you just need to know a little about it. Don't worry about all the names that I'm mentioning. Just know what fits well for what. So there are three major types of font: the serif, the sans serif, and the display fonts. I know for some of you here, you might have seen decorative, monospace, fancy, handwritten scripts. All these categories I mentioned now, they all fall under what? Display fonts, right? Now, serif. Serif are fonts that have those little strokes. If you look at the S, there's a stroke. The R has the stroke. The I has it. The letter F has it. Those are what are called serifs, those strokes, right? And because serifs are traditional, so they play a major role in your newspaper design, your magazine, your invitation for maybe a royal event or a wedding, right? They are used for classical outlooks. They give those kind of vibes. They give those princely, royal kind of vibes, queenly kind of vibes. You get. So the next one is sans serif. And sans is a French word that means without serif. Remember, in the previous one, serif has these strokes. Sans serif doesn't have the strokes. You can see the strokes are here outlined for you to see that, okay, this doesn't have them. That is the difference. If you add strokes to this, it becomes a serif. And it is very modern and easy to read. That is the major reason why it is the most commonly used type font, because you find it on the website you visit, you find it on your computer screen, even the fonts on your mobile phones are sans serifs. Why? Because of legibility, readability. You're not straining your eyes to read it. You're not trying to understand, is this A or is this S? That's the beauty of sans serif. Then, of course, display. You can see how very despicable it looks. So, like I said, they can be in scripts, they can be in all caps or plain fancy or black letter. Let me show you a few examples. Now, look up, you see script up there, you see black letter, see all caps. You can see this very nice fonts they used to write yoga. See this battle of the bands. These are display fonts. They are decorative, and because of their nature, you can't do a complete design using entirely only display fonts. No, it doesn't work like that. They are mostly used for titles or like the battle of the brands, yeah. Just a simple typography design. It works for that because if you put too much, it becomes a disaster. Okay. Now, now that you know what sans serif, serifs, and display fonts are, you need to now be able to decide which fonts to use for which project. Okay, so these are feelings, or should I say emotions that fonts convey, languages. Fonts can be very casual, fonts can be neutral, fonts can be exotic, and they can be very graphic as well. But depending on the message you want to communicate, the message you want to pass, that's what decides, that's what determines the kind of font you choose, the kind of font you use for your design. So let's say I want to tell I want to tell my mother that I love you, but I don't want to say it in words. I want to say it with a design. Now, if I use this graphic font to say I love you to my mother, is she gonna be excited to see it or is she gonna be scared? Of course she'll be scared. In fact, she'll be worried. She even think someone has stolen my son's phone or they hacked his device or something. This doesn't sound like, because graphic communicates a different message. But with graphic, if I write, I will catch you and you go to jail with this graphic, you start shaking because you know this person means business. That's how fonts are important in communication. You don't want to say I love you and you write it with graphics. That person will be scared. You don't want to ask someone, when are you visiting? And it's graphics. The person will be wondering, are you having plans to kidnap me when I get there? So they are very, very important. Exactly. She'll be terrified. So with regards to whatever you want to do, let's say, for example, you want to design a poster for your sister who is having a baby shower. Now you know that the font needs to be casual because a baby shower is not an exotic event. A baby shower does not fall under the graphic speaking language. And it can actually be a bit neutral. So you can mix casual and neutral, but make sure that whatever choice of font you choose communicates the exact language. That's why typography is very, very, very important. I can see all your comments. Well done. So let's keep it going. Now, There are some fonts that graphic designers just don't like. I was telling a few people in a couple months ago, I said most designers don't even know why they don't like these fonts, this set of fonts, because we inherited the dislike from our predecessors and we just don't like them. You will not hear any graphic designer talking about Comic Sans or talking about Joker Man or Bruscript or Papyrus. Not because they are really bad, it's because they are overly used. So these were like the top fonts in the early ages, and they've been overused, and they've become outdated. And people are looking for modern ways to communicate and pass their language. Imagine using Joker Man to write "I love you." The person is wondering which kid sends this message, right? So whenever you're tempted to use them, and the crazy thing is, they are default fonts on your system. They come with your system. You don't have to install them. They come with your system for every other font you install. But for this set, they they don't need to be installed. They are defaultly installed from the manufacturer of your system when you get one. So whenever you feel like, oh, I want to use Comic Sans to do a design, just look for another font that has a similarity. Just look for maybe Arial Black or Arial Rounded. Look for Verdana, something else. There are other beautiful names, other beautiful fonts that can give you a similar effect that are modern. But just try to run away from all these fonts that you see here. Okay. I just successfully inducted you into the eighth gang for these fonts. Okay, so combining fonts. Remember we talked about choosing, selecting the kind of fonts, selecting the kind of fonts you use. Right? Now you need to know how to combine them. Now, in combining fonts, take notes. Less is more. If if you don't understand anything in everything I've said so far, just remember that in combining fonts, less is more. Okay? Now, if you look at the slide, you can see that I combined two fonts. I combined the script font, which is under the display category, and I combined a sans serif font. Now, this combination goes well. That's the reason why it is combined. If it doesn't go well, when you even see it, you would have started screaming, right? But because it goes very well, perfectly well, you can see it. Now, the thing is, just don't limit yourself. Sometimes you can use one font for an entire design. Another very beautiful thing about fonts is they come in different sizes and different weights. So a font can have regular, medium, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, black, extra black, or even ultra black, or heavy black, which means they get thicker as the name changes. So if you're using one font for your design, you could just make one bold and make the other one regular. Or you can add italic and make it italicized, right? So which is what I did here. I just used a straight font and a cursive font. Cursive is another name for script, okay? So you don't think that I'm bringing in another category that's nowhere to be found. All right. So, um, like I said, less is more. And when choosing fonts, make sure that for a design, you don't use more than two fonts. If you use more than two, it should not exceed three, which means if you use serif, you can use that with sans serif. If you use a display font, you can use that with a serif. Okay? Tochukwu, don't worry. I would I'll share the slides so you can get the summary. Okay, so now these are different ways to decide which one to use. Regular and italics, or complementary colors, or all caps and lowercase. Now, if you look at the first book here, you see you do you is a different font. Then under it, where we have tips for following your bliss, is an entirely different font. So those are two font pairings there. The next one, woe is me, is a different font. That's a script. Then Eric John Rush is a serif font. That's two. Okay. Then here comes the sun, which is on the third book, and J.M. Valentine. Those are both serifs. But now some serifs can be long and some can be short. So the font up there is a long version of the serif, and the one down here is a short version. That is why you're seeing that difference. So, and other times, remember, if you use all caps and lowercase to select fonts. Now, if you look at these designs, you would see that the choices of fonts create contrast. The choices of fonts creates contrast. Here comes the sun is in all caps. J and Valentine is in lower cases. That is contrast. Woe is me is very big, and the name of the author, Eric John Rush, small. Contrast. The same way you do you is big, and tips for following your bliss is small. Contrast. So contrast comes into play as well because why? It's a principle. Because this is now a design. Do you get it? Now, there are other important terms when we talk about typography, when we talk about fonts. There are other important terms, a lot of other important terms. So, um, let's dive in real quick. So, in case you've heard of the word turning, you've heard of the word leading, you've heard of tracking, and we have hierarchy, famous hierarchy. See, I told you that there's hierarchy that might repeat itself, and there are some words that repeat. But guess what? They mean the same thing in everywhere they appear. That's the interesting thing. It might just mean that what you are making, what you're using to do hierarchy on this is different from what hierarchy is doing on that. But hierarchy means the same thing across board. Okay. Now, turning, leading, tracking, and hierarchy. Don't let your mind be troubled that these are some very big words, or should I say grammatical functions. Just don't stress it, okay? All you need to do is look for inspiration. And inspiration is all over the place when it comes to the world of design. Now, we start with hierarchy. Remember, hierarchy is used to guide the reader's eye. Like I said, hierarchy provides order of importance. Now, in other words, it shows them where to begin and where to go next using different levels of emphasis. Now, you see that emphasis comes to play in hierarchy, but they are not the same, right? Because with hierarchy, it just tells you, read this first. The first thing you see when this slide comes up, first thing you see is the word hierarchy, big. Then the next thing you see is used to guide the reader's eye because it's the next big thing. Then the last thing you would see is, in other words, I've been able to help you guide how to read this. That is what hierarchy does. Okay? Um, so now, see, how hierarchy works in your placement of text, even in your choice of fonts. You can see, so this is a business card now, like we had yesterday, and this is arranged asymmetrically, like we already know. Then this is the use of one font, Muriel Pro, one font, but you can see that it has different weights and different styles because this one here is bold, the other one is all caps, and this is the regular font in lower cases. Very good composition, very good choices, and very well balanced as well. Establishing hierarchy is simple, right? All you need to do is just decide which element you want the reader to notice first. Which element you want the reader to notice what first. Then make them stand out. High-level items are usually larger, bolder, or different in some ways. So it should have a difference. What you want them to see first should be different. That's where hierarchy comes to play. Remember, like I always say, keep it simple. Keep it very simple. Okay. Now, the next thing is leading. Leading is the space between lines of text. Some text can be too tight, like maybe you're reading a paragraph. There's no proper spacing between each line of text. That would be a wrong leading. But if it's properly spaced or evenly spaced, then the leading is correct. So leading is simply known as line spacing. Okay. Now look at the example here. You can see that the leading used in this design is tight. That's why the lady in the picture is freaking out because she's having issues reading it. And if you're not sure of how much line spacing to use, don't worry. There's always a default. There's always a default line spacing for all fonts. When you pick a font and you put in your text, it comes with a default line spacing, right? When we get into the different softwares that I will show you on Thursday, I will show you how to get your text and how to see all these things that I mentioned in all of the classes we'll do till we get to Thursday. Okay. So because learning is important because it helps the reader. And I know you might be wondering, everything we're doing is just helping the reader, helping the reader, helping the reader. The reader is the audience. And if the reader does not get the communication that you're trying to pass from your content, you have failed. All the time you spent working on that project will be wasted because the information supposed to pass didn't go through or didn't get to the audience due to lack of proper tracking or proper balance or proper use of white space or proper use of contrast or because there's no hierarchy, that is why all of these elements and everything, the principles and fundamentals, they have a major role. Okay. The next one, tracking. So you see the way leading is the line spacing between each line of text. Tracking is the line spacing between each characters. So you see the space between T and R is different from the space between R and A. The same way the space between I and N is different from the space between C and K. That is what tracking is. Now, in the softwares that we would use when we get into the practical classes, you see that you can actually adjust the tracking, you can adjust the leading to fit into what you desire. But remember, too much of it becomes bad tracking. Sometimes it's used to create a very good placement for a text. Okay, look at this. Look at this example. See this annual report text. It has extra tracking, which means that it seems a bit spread, right? If you reduce the tracking, it comes back to becoming something like one of these other texts in the slide here. Now, 2016 written year is also added an extra tracking. That's why you see like an extra space. Same thing for Cafe Citron. Tracking is used. So because of the different fonts, you see how it applies to everything. Okay. And for some designs, all you just need to do is probably just adjust the tracking a little bit, and your design is good to go. All you have to do is just adjust. When you adjust the tracking, you're good. Now, kerning. Kerning is the space between specific characters. Specific. Remember, tracking is the overall space between characters, and sometimes called what? Character spacing. But kerning is the space between specific characters, and it varies over the course of the word because each letter fits together differently. Now, see this. Some fonts have bad kerning naturally. They just have bad kerning. It's not up to you. That is how the font was created. Oh, let me also tell you, fonts are created. They are actually created by people. People like me, people like you. All you have to do is decide, I want to create a font and find the means available to creating one and get it done. And you can name it whatever you like, right? If you heard me mention a few names, you would have heard Futura, you would have heard Montserrat. Montserrat is an island, but somebody named the font Montserrat, and Montserrat is a very popular font. There's a font called Gilroy. There's a font called Gotham. There's a font called Ubuntu. You know, there's a new font a Nigerian designer created recently called Ojuju. So it's up to the creator to name the font. You can create your own font and decide to call it Ojuelegba, or you want to call it Lagos. It's up to you, right? So fonts are created. Okay. So I thought to put out there because I know I mentioned that it is just the way the font is created, so that you know that they are actually created and they are created by people, not by robots. Okay. So now some fonts have what we call bad kerning, which makes certain letters look improperly spaced. If you have a font or you're trying to use a font that has bad kerning, it's best to not stress yourself. It's best to just change the font entirely. Choose another font that looks closely related to that. Very good. Closely related to that, right? And use that font so that you don't take time trying to adjust the bad kerning of the font. Okay? Sometimes the bad kerning could be the way the creator of the font wants it to be. That's his own design. But because of what you are trying to communicate, that font is obviously not working for you. So just move on to something else. I can see some people typing that they'll create their own fonts. I'll be waiting for you. Okay. Now putting it all together, we've talked about what typography is. We talked about the common types of fonts. We talked about choosing fonts. And we also talked about combining fonts, right? And in all of these things, I kept saying what? Less is more. Now, put it all together. A well-crafted text can mean the difference between something ordinary and something extraordinary. You see this slide has a perfect description of what is going on here, or what this text says. Look at this one. Imagine putting it all together is written this way. Would it make sense to you, or it would just be there? It would just be like, it's just there. Oluwafemi said, are creators, are they revised? And how do they get the app to general acceptability? Well, they have there are other ways to get that done. We can talk about that after the class. Okay, just remind me. Okay, Busayo, you're raising your hand. Okay, um,
Okay, can you
go
hear me?
on. Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
Yes, greeting everyone. Sorry, I just have to say this now because it's just bothering me since they have started this next section. Yesterday, I don't know if anybody now have access to that WhatsApp group that was created. I was unable to log into it, and you talked about sharing the slide yesterday, which I did not get. So I don't know if the slide will be after the whole section from yesterday to Friday before we get it. So that's my
Okay,
question.
so okay, all right. So we'll get that sorted with the WhatsApp and the slides. Okay, so for now, right? Every um all of the slides from yesterday to today to tomorrow's slides, every slide, all of it put together will be shared on Thursday. Okay, so in case you don't have it as of now, because I think it was shared yesterday. If you don't have it now, do not worry. We'll share it again on Thursday. Everything. Okay? Yeah. Okay, someone says, yes, exactly. The name of that font you saw is Old English. Um, Now, do you have any examples of two fonts that fit together? Yes, I showed you in the slides. This is perfectly two different fonts that fit together. The first font here used for putting it all is called Gilroy, 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 right? Now, the font used to write together is Old English, is a display font. So this is a combination of what? Sans serif and display. Okay? This is another example right here. This is another example. Sans serif and display. These are examples here. This is another example. This is sans serif and this is the display font. This is Gilroy and this is Blue Stripe, which is a script font. Okay? So good, good. Yes. Okay, so where were we? Putting it all together. Now, I just mentioned to you that if this putting it all to no, if this putting it all together, yeah, this text is written plainly as this, would it make more sense to you? Would it pass the exact message you want to pass, or would it just be ordinary? You can type in the chat box. It wouldn't pass the message that the design was supposed to. See, it will be ordinary. Exactly. Thank you, David. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Comfort. Thank you, Peace. Exactly. Exactly. It will be ordinary. Now, I like the fact that you get the idea of typography. Now, even with the way it is here, you can see that this font, putting it all together, the way it's curved like an arc, creates a different message entirely, which is a good thing. In other words, font can be straight and they can also have wavy moves if they want. I'll show you how to do all of this when we get into the software interface on Thursday. Okay, exactly. It should be ordinary. Okay, now when you put it all together, this is what it looks like. All caps, small caps. Scripts. Remember, I said scripts can be used for exotic events, weddings, royal events, like that. Same thing for serifs. right? Now, see an example. I know if you look at Innovate, you now remember that you've seen this in the restaurant you went to eat last week. You probably seen this at the should I say bar that you had your birthday last year. And you also notice that you've seen this in the office spaces or at the cinema, anywhere. So all those typography, all those designs you see with text on a wall, they are use of typography. Exactly. Justin said the mall, perfect example. So you see, typography, like I said, is everywhere. These are simple typography designs, just only text. You can't see an image here, right? Now, a few people might know this book, this thing called purpose. Tell me if you can see this thing called purpose in the book. Let me see in the chat. Can you see this thing called purpose from the book cover? The one on the left. Anybody? Exactly. Good, good. Because you have to look closely. Nice one for me. You have to look closely to see. Yeah. Yes, you have to look closely for you to see it. You have to look closely. I can, but I have to look exactly. That's the idea. Because purpose in itself is not something you just see when you look at someone. You can't tell their purpose. You have to look deeper for purpose to be communicated. So you see the idea. The person that created the book cover was able to communicate that effectively without any image, just typography. Carrier says more like you have to crack it. Well, I mean, purpose is not something that comes easily. Okay, now look at the other side. Integration, typography, and there are little messages on the side. And if you look closely, you see images of people. Guess what? The image of the person you see there and the text underneath or close to their picture is either their quote or something they said somewhere. Integration. That's a very good design. A very good example of typography. This is another one. Now, this shows you contrast. This shows you balance. This shows you a very good use of hierarchy. And it also shows you what's it called? Who says I saw people? Where did you see people? Okay. On the other picture. Yeah. 4 pictures. Yes, good. Um, so you can see he's almost saying the same thing. Never gonna give up. Let you never gonna down. I don't understand that grammar, but then you can see that the use of typography. So this is what is going on here. It's about to be never gonna give you, then up comes to the top. Did you see that? It drives your eye. It uses hierarchy to give your eye a direction. The first thing you see is never gonna. The next thing you see is give you, then it takes you back up. Then it puts up there, which is very ingenious. It's nice. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around forever and desert you. Oh, see, it's together. Never gonna run around and desert you. These are just a very good play of typography, and you can see hierarchy come into play here full time, right? Exactly. Never gonna let you down. Good, good. Now, this is another one. Somebody tell me what you see, what you can read on the first picture, the one on the blue slide, on the blue background, what can you see?
Life is like.
Life is like. Okay. So it actually reads, life is like dominoes. One wrong one wrong move. If you want to speak, remember our rule. If you want to speak, just raise up your hand and I would let you speak. Okay? Okay. If you want to speak, you raise up your hand and I'll let you speak. Okay, good. Okay, I have 4 people. All right. That would be all the hands for now. 5, 6. Okay. So, let's take it one after the other. Okay, Idris, go on.
Life is like dominoes. One wrong move and everything you have worked for falls apart.
Very good. Endurance.
Life is like dominoes. One wrong move and everything you have worked for falls apart.
Okay, now the next person, I want you to explain to me what this um this text, this typography art, what it's communicating. So David, go on. What's the design communicating?
The design is trying to tell you that a single mistake can upend your entire life's work.
Mm-hmm. And you can see that everything is falling apart.
Yes. So
Very
we have to
good.
make this.
Mm-hmm. So now
Yeah.
you can see how typography plays a major role. Okay, Glory, go on. What does the
Okay.
design explain?
Okay, from this design, I can see they are all like kind of tumbling. So, like the word says, life is like dominoes, one wrong move. You just take one word out of it and able to tumble apart. So, able
Exactly.
to fall
Now,
apart. So, that's it.
good. Thank you. Comfort.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good morning,
For
Comfort.
me, I would say that assuming you're going down the stairs and you missed your steps, you
Mm,
certainly fall down, and
they're
that's
trying
what
to
the
communicate, right?
design is trying to communicate to us.
Okay. I like that. So I'll take one more before I explain something to you on that design. Jeremiah, go on.
Okay, to me, good afternoon, my sister. To me, I
Good
feel,
morning.
as beautiful as cake is, you're carrying a cake to put on something. If you like stumble or you eat your leg on something, when it falls,
Mm,
it's the beauty, you lose the beauty.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, good. Thank you. So now, I don't know if you guys know what dominoes are or if you heard of the term domino effect. So the domino effect is, let's say you have a
I only
lot
know Domino's
of
Pizza.
very nice, but there's something called dominoes effect, okay? Not Domino's pizza. So the dominoes effect is when you have lots of, let's say, sticks or lots of balls, and one, they're all standing, and one is trying to fall. When that one falls, it touches every of the other one, and they all just start falling. Why? Because one starts to fall. Now, on that design right there, you will see that life, which starts with an L, that L is falling apart, and that L that is falling is what is making every other thing fall. It's that simple. That is how it explains one wrong move because everything was actually standing in the first place. But one wrong move and they all start crashing down. That's the domino effect. That's the play of words. That's typography. Okay. Okay. So now on the other design on the side, you can easily communicate. You can easily tell what's going on here. I mean, this is a football poster. These are four set of matches from different leagues, right? We have the La Liga, we have the Premier League, the Eredivisie, and the Serie A. And you can see the pictures of the teams that are playing. And the text communicates perfectly. It helps the image. Remember, I mentioned combination of fonts, and I said some can be long and others can be short. This is a perfect example of long and short font combination. La Liga, the font used there is a long font. Fonts like this can be either Sacco, it can be Itajin, it can be Vivas, any choice. Then you can see the font used to write Man United versus Man City. It could be Gilroy, it could be Montserrat, it could be, so just get the idea, long and short, just combined because they work perfectly well. Okay. So before we go into color, I would like to take questions. Now, it's fine, Bello. So for the questions, right? If you have questions, you raise your hands. And when you want to ask your question, please introduce yourself so that the other people can know who is talking, okay? Introduce yourself, your name, and tell us and ask the question. For those that have network glitches, just type it in the chat box. I will read your questions out, okay? All right, so questions about typography. And, okay, Glory. Okay, Glory, go on.
Okay, my name is Busayo Glory, and okay, so the first question I would like to ask is, when you started this typography, you mentioned that font is a part of typography, and in all that we've done now, I think font is the only type you mentioned. I don't know if I missed something along the way, or maybe you mentioned other parts. You said font is a part of typography, and then you went ahead to tell us the types of
Okay.
fonts that we have. So I want to know, is font the only part of typography that is necessary for design, or there are other parts? Also, I didn't really get the leading and tracking. Leading and tracking rather. I don't know like the difference between them. I didn't really get that part. So I'd like you to
Okay,
go.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so now see typography as an estate. Typography is an estate. Now, in an estate, there are buildings. There can be commercial buildings and there can be residential buildings in an estate, right? Now, in the commercial buildings, the commercial buildings will be typefaces, and the residential buildings will be fonts. Now, types of fonts are serif, there are serif, sans serifs, and display. And I mentioned that under display, we have monotype, we have fancy, we have decorative, we have script or cursive, and Old English falls into that category of display, right? Now, typeface, which is the father of font, or should I say the son of font. So typeface comes out of font. What are typefaces? These names that I was mentioning. Gilroy, Inter, Futura, Montserrat, Blue Stripe. These are fonts. These are typefaces under the types of fonts. Do you get? Now, the reason why we call them fonts is because they fall into the overall category of fonts. Okay, so it can be called typeface or it can be called font, but the general term is font. So typography is the overall estate. Types of fonts are in that estate, and other kinds of fonts and typefaces are also in that estate. They are all under typography. Okay, do you get it now, Glory?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, now for your second question, you talked about leading and tracking, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, now see this is the difference. You know, when you're reading a book, you are reading in lines. The first line, the second line, the third line, the fourth line, and down to the end of the book. Those spaces in between each line is called leading. Okay, the spaces in between each line of text is what is called leading. Thank you, David. Typography as a farm where you have different crops planted called fonts. Good. So leading. Okay. I'll get to you, Olayemi. Leading are those spaces in between each line of text. Okay. And tracking is the space between characters. Do you get it? The line of text, which is every sentence of every line. See, look at my slide. Look at tracking is the overall space between, that's one line. Character spacing, full stop, most programs let you, that's another line. Depending on your needs, that's another line. Now, the space you see in between these three lines is called leading. Okay? Now, the space between each character tracked in TRACKING, these spaces you see, that's why we have this arrow that gives a measurement of a ruler, because tracking is talking about the space of the character. That space of the character is what space does the word tracking carry? How much space does tracking take? See, the space tracking takes in this text below is different from the space is takes, and the space D will take, and the space overall will take, or the space between will take, or the space condense, or depending. Those are the different spaces. That is what tracking is. Then kerning is now the space between each character. Do you get it? I hope I'm also answering your question, Olayemi. Kerning is the difference between the spaces between each character. Now, so those spaces between each characters, let me go to those designs real quick. Now, look at this. It's not the length of life, but the depth of life. See the space between I and F in life, and see the space between O and F in off. You see that the spaces are different, right? That space is what kerning is called. Now, I now said there are fonts that have what? Bad kerning. What does bad kerning looks like? Bad kerning is simply the irregular spaces between characters. Look at this. You can see that the spaces are still evenly distributed. But imagine if it is too tight or it is too wide. See the space between B and A, and see the space between A and D. It's crazy much. The space between E and R and the space between I and N, or N and I, is too tight. That's bad kerning. Okay? So, Olayemi, I think I've answered your question now. All right. Adela. Okay, go on, Adela. What's your question? Your name and your question. I can barely hear you. I think I can.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Go on. Your name and your question.
My name is Mwen Abiola. So
Okay.
you talked about font type of
Types of
so
fonts.
you
Yeah.
said
Serif. Okay, Adela, I think I'm losing you. Your
have
network
the
might be. Okay, if your network is having issues, just type in the chat box. I will read the question for you. Okay. Adela, you can type your question. I'll read it out.
Let me type it.
All right. Okay. Ayodeji.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Your name and your
Good
question.
morning, everyone. My name is Ayodeji. Now, I'd like to, I don't know if you can bring that particular image, sir, where you have the Eredivisie, the La Liga, and Premier League.
Okay. It's right here.
Yes, sir. You were talking about, earlier in the class, you talked about the less is more, which means when you have more fonts, the less is more. So from that image, yes, from that image, the second one there, the Premier League, I think we have 2 football clubs.
Yes, we do.
The image is not showing on my own page here, but I think people can get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Now, the Premier League has a lot of letters there. I think Manchester United, Manchester City or so. Yes, so I'm trying to connect, since the Premier League has a lot of characters in it.
In the text.
Man City, Man U are also having a lot of characters there. Yes.
So what's the question?
Yes, sir. Why did they then understand what I'm trying to say that, sir? If the less is more, on both sides there are more. Yes, that's what I'm saying, that, sir. Why did they now choose to bring out this character more, to pronounce the Premier League more, since he's also having a lot of characters in it?
A lot of characters, right? Okay.
Yes,
I
sir.
get you. Right. So let me answer your question. Very simple. You kept saying less is more. Perfect. I like that. Now look at what I said before when I talked about combining fonts. I mentioned that you can use a long font and a short font. And I told you what a long font and a a short font looks like, right? And I gave you an example in combining fonts. See, you do you is a long font. Tips for following your bliss is a short font. It's straight. Here comes the sun is a long font, all caps. JM Valentine is a short font in lower cases, even though it can be all caps, right? Now, let's go back to that design you in reference. The reason they got away with the many texts or the many characters in that text is because they used a long font and a shorter font. If Premier League was written in the same font as Manchester United and Man City, that would have been a problem. The use of that long font and short font solves it all. Now, see the Eredivisie. PSV Eindhoven is longer than Man United versus, and they now still put versus Ajax. So it's already long, but the use of a long font and a short font, that is what creates the contrast. That is what creates the balance. That is what creates less being more. Okay? Did I answer your question very well? Just
very well. So I think when you were explaining that, I had network issues, so I didn't hear that part then, but I understand perfectly well now, sir.
Great, yes. Great. Okay, Justin says, I don't understand put all together. Okay, Justin, if you were in class yesterday, remember when after explaining the principles, we talked about putting it all together. After explaining the fundamentals, we talked about putting it all together. Putting it all together just simply means the results of all of the things we've learned. The result of kerning, the result of leading, the result of tracking, the result of hierarchy, the result of choosing fonts, the result of choosing how to combine them. When you put all of that together, you get these designs. Because in these designs, all of those things are being put together. They're being put to play here, right? You can see them in play. You can see integrate has a bigger text saying integrate and a smaller text explaining or showing you quotes from the speaker in the picture. Okay, I think Justin, that's clear now, right? So Adela said serif font is used for classical art look and they give royal vibes. Please, can you give example of display example of serif fonts? Okay, see an example here. See this cafe site run. Sorry, he said serif. Okay, give me a minute. There should be one here. Okay, yes, there is one. There you go. Now, I said it can be used for a classic, traditional design. Traditional talks about newspapers and magazines. See the way serif, see the way it looks, exclusive from dot to dot. You won't believe this transformation. That is an exact example of a serif font. You can see the serifs. Then the other text, everything is serif. This is a magazine, which is an example. Okay, I will show you more examples of serif fonts as we go on. Now, please, I need a slide for the display font. The display font is all over this presentation. If you look closely, this is the slide for display fonts. There are two fonts here used to write display. The one in white is Old English. The one in teal green is the signature font, which is a script. What I just did was combine scripts and black letter, which is what you have here. Okay. So the next question, please, can I get the writing from yesterday? Yes, you can. We get that. Okay, Peace, you're raising your hand, so go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, facilitator, so far.
Thank you. You're welcome. Good morning.
My question is, how does one master the names of all these fonts, and how do we get, for instance, from what you just said now, you were speaking on the Old English fonts, and then you were also describing it as a display. Initially, when you were explaining that display font, I actually thought that was its own name. So, but for now, you have maybe cleared that part, because I'm trying to just wrap my head around, catching each fonts and their
Okay.
patterns here. So
Okay,
how do we
so
master those?
okay, so that's a very good question, right? And it's a little bit tricky. The reason I said it's a little bit tricky is because it's a thing that you develop. All you have to do is pay attention to details. For me, I can see a font and tell what font it is. I can tell the name of the font by looking at it. That's not because I have a supernatural eyesight or because my eyes record the fonts and store them in my glasses. No, that's because I use these fonts and I keep the name in my head if I like the fonts, so that the next time I'm trying to use that font, I can remember it. That way, when I'm working on something again and I'm like, oh, there's that font I used last time. What's the name again? Exactly. I just remember it. Good. Montserrat. And I pick it up and I use. If the name was Merita, I'm like, oh, yes. Merita is good for wedding invites. And I go back and bring Merita up. Or let's say I'm working on a brochure that speaks to ancient Roman, and I want something to communicate that. And I remember that there was a font I used for some design I did some time ago, maybe Castellamolgate. I'll bring it out and say, yes, Castellamolgate will work well. And remember, I told you that it can be overwhelming, but just take it a step at a time. Just know which font falls under which category, which font falls under display, which font falls under serif, which font falls under sans serif. Now, in the examples I have here, you will see more serifs in play. I say serifs, more sans serifs, pardon. You see more sans serifs in play. Remember, I said sans serifs are modern, they are easy to read, they are very legible. Hence the reason everybody would want to use a serif. Now, let me show you. Okay, look. So this life is like dominoes. One wrong move, everything falls apart. Is an example of long fonts. You can see the fonts are long, just like the ones they use to write La Liga, Premier League, and Serie A. Yeah, they're long. So, and it has a name. They have different names of these fonts. All you just need to do is know what I'm working on and what font works best. Now, in case you are thinking, okay, but I'm new to this, how can I tell what fonts work best? I mentioned earlier, I said in the design world, there are examples everywhere. Why? We have close to, I can't really tell the population of the world right now, but it's over 8 billion people, which means that there is at least one example of every kind of design online. Just go online, do your research. Research is a basic thing for a designer. Oh, I want to do an invite. Go online, do your research. I want to design a flyer. Go online, do your research. What does research do for you? It helps you tell what fonts to choose, what image to use, what colors to go for a baby shower, what how to place your images and everything. It gives you an idea. It helps you get a reference. It helps your conceptualization when you're thinking of how the design will look. Okay. Someone said, I need a reflection on Comic Sans. I just told you, Comic Sans is one of those fonts that fall into the generational hatred or dislike. It's just a font that we don't like, not because it killed somebody or something. But I said it has been overly used and it is outdated. Okay? That's for Comic Sans. The difference between kerning and tracking. Okay, I think I just explained that, but I will do that again. So I said kerning is the space in between each character. What is a character? K is a character. E is a character. R, N, these are characters. Those space in between each of them is called kerning. Now, tracking is the space of the overall characters, which means tracking is the space of words, the individual words. Say space. Space is a word. How much space does that word carry? That is called tracking. How much space does between carry? That's tracking. How much space does characters does it carry? That is tracking. Okay. Good one, Peter. You mastered the font as you work with them. Good. Bella says, yeah, you can get the writing. So Mudashir, you can speak. Go on.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you. So your name and your question.
My name is Murashid. So you categorize those fonts into three parts: serif, sans serif, and display. So I want to ask that when we are dealing with the software you are going to be using for the design, are they going to categorize them this way, or they are just going to join everything together, just like
Okay, I get you. So they will not be categorized in the softwares or anywhere else except
so
you're
we
dealing
just
with
have
that.
to.
So that is why I'm telling you that know which font falls under which category and know which font to use, because fonts are used to pass language. Remember when I mentioned the sending a message to my mom and using a graphic font that would make her scared, which is not what I wanted to communicate. So you know the fonts and the language you're trying to communicate, and you know which of these categories best fits into that. Is it going to be serif? If it's serif, what are the serif fonts that are for? Then you start looking out for serif fonts. If it's sans serif, what are the sans serif fonts that will work best? Then you start looking out for them. If it's display, what display font will be my best choice? You look out for that. Okay. But on the softwares, you would not see those categories. Okay. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Okay, Glory, another question. So that would be the last question before we go into the next class.
Okay, sorry, I just want to get more clarification on this tracking. I'm so sorry. I know I've asked before and you answered, but then this question someone asked again and you explained this
Answer
tracking.
again.
So I
Okay.
want to know, for what you just explained now, you said it is the overall space between the characters. So are you saying that I don't even know how to ask. Are you saying God?
Okay. Let me help you, Glory. I think I understand what you're. So this is what I'm saying. Now, your name is Glory, right? For example, you want to write your name. Let's say Glory Sorechi. Now, and you write the two names. Each name carries its own space. When I mean its own space is Glory is 5 letters. 5 letters put in a space. That space that those 5 letters carry is called tracking. The other name is probably 7 letters. The space that 7 letter carries is different from the space 5 letters will carry. Those spaces are called tracking. And I also said, don't let your head be clouded with this many words: the tracking, the kerning, the leading, and the hierarchy. Why I said that is because most of the fonts come in perfect condition. In fact, 98.5% of fonts that you download, they come in perfect condition and ready to use. They have perfect tracking, they have perfect kerning, they have perfect hierarchy. Hierarchy is actually for you to actually implement, but they have perfect kerning, perfect tracking, and perfect leading. So all you just have to do most times is select the font that best communicate what you want to communicate, and you will not really have to worry about tracking. Okay, so it's not something you should worry about.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now let's move into the next session, which is color. Which is color. I know you've heard a lot about color. You've seen colors everywhere. I mean, even looking at the screen now, you can see colors, right? You can see black, you can see white, you can see gray, you can see brown. There are colors everywhere around us. Same way with typography all over the place as well. Now, the color in a design communicates a lot. And colors have emotions. Colors have emotions. They play a major role. Take an example, the eateries. The eateries. If you check all the restaurants or all eateries, they use red and orange and yellow. Red, yellow, orange. Red and yellow. Let's put it that way. They use red and yellow. The major reason for the red and yellow is this. Those two colors are bound to draw attention. If you're passing by on the road and a red car passes, you would see it because it stands out from all the black and gray cars you see, right? Red. Yellow does the same thing. If you're driving on the street and all the houses are painted gray and you see a yellow house, I mean, it stands out. So yellow and red calls attention and they stimulate you. So they can stimulate hunger. Immediately you pass in front of that restaurant painted in red. You're already thinking the last time you had chicken. Immediately you pass through the other one painted in yellow and red. You're already thinking the last time you had fries. Why? Because color plays a major role. Now, have you ever seen any restaurant that doesn't have red and yellow? If you have seen one, check. That restaurant is probably not doing well. Why? Because the colors that they use are not communicating what restaurants should communicate. And as such, people are not really seeing, they're not getting the visibility they're supposed to get. What am I telling you? Colors are very essential. Colors are very, very essential. Exactly. Just as your stop sign shows red, colors are very essential. I'm talking about colors in general, whether an ad, whether a painting, whether a building, whether a car, whether the color of your phone. Colors are important. Okay? Now, colors can help you feel confidence in different situations, whether you're choosing for a design or you're just deciding a better outfit. Now, as a designer, and you know how to select your colors, you should not dress in colors that don't go well together. You can wear white and black, fine. But would you wear red and blue? You now think about it. Maybe you tone it down a bit. But I'm sure everyone has heard about color theory. And you're wondering, yeah, we did that in secondary school or primary school. We'll get there fully. Now, we did primary colors and secondary colors in school, whether primary school or secondary school, or for those people that studied art-related courses. Now, primary colors are red, yellow, and green. Red, yellow, and blue, sorry. Red, yellow, blue, primary colors. How do these colors switch to become secondary? By combining each. Remember I mentioned the E3s use red and yellow. If you mix red and yellow together, you get what? Orange. Orange is a secondary color. If you mix red and blue together, you get purple. Purple is a secondary color. If you mix yellow and blue together, it gives you green. And green is what? A secondary color. So you see how these three primary colors go about creating more colors. That becomes secondary, tertiary, tetradic, and the likes. Now, if we mix these colors, we even get more colors in between, more shades. We get more shades. Now, look at the color wheel and look at the colors on the left side. You see, you know, we brought out the primary colors, we mixed them together, and we got the secondary colors. Now, on this left side, we have primary and secondary colors all together. Oh, yeah. The primary colors are in the triangle. Red, they are here. These are the primary colors. This to this to this to this. Those are primary colors, right? The secondary colors are this to this to this to this. How did we get them? By mixing this to this to this. That's how we got the secondary colors. Now, these colors here, bring them in here. Look at them. Red, purple, yellow, green, blue. right? Now, this is orange, sorry. Yeah. This is not purple. This is purple. Okay. Now, how do we get these other colors? Because red and orange, that's mixing each of these colors now differently. You know, before we just mixed the primary color to get secondary. Now we're mixing the primary colors and secondary colors to get the other set of colors. So we mix red and orange, gives us a reddish orange. We mix orange and yellow, gives us yellowish orange. We mix green and yellow and gives us what we call lemon or a yellowish green. We mix blue and green and we get, and it goes on. Purple and red, we get a darker or a lighter shade. Purple and blue, we get a brighter shade, you know? So on like that. Now, it takes us to a closer look at what these colors, what they do, what they look like, and how important they are. Let's start from the basics. I said, remember when you learned colors and color theory in primary and secondary school, right? These are all colors all over the screen, and they all fall into different categories. Now, we have hue. Hue is basically just another word for color. So in case you attend a conference or you attend an event, in case you attend an event and somebody talking about change the hue to green, change the hue to yellow, don't start wondering what French this person is speaking or what gibberish this is. The person is just trying to say change the color. Okay? Just and remember, don't get overwhelmed. Don't stress yourself about keeping all the names in your head and trying to use them. You can just say change the color. Nobody's gonna send you to jail. And if you say change the hue, nobody's also gonna send you to jail, okay? So this just describes how the colors are, depending on the interpretation. Blue, red, pink, name it. Now, saturation is another term. Saturation talks about the intensity. In other words, whether the color appears more subtle or more vibrant. If, you know now, it's easy to tell that there's black and there's white. Now, the question now is, what is in between white and black? I know everybody will shout gray, right? But those gray, they have intensities. If you tilt towards the white part of the gray, it becomes brighter gray. If you tilt towards the dark part of the gray, it becomes what? Darker gray. That is just the perfect example of saturation. It helps you to tell, okay, this is red, but it is a dull red, probably because it's more is subtle, or this is red and it's too sharp, probably because it is vibrant, right? So that's for saturation. Then, if it's subtle, it can be called desaturated. And the word desaturated can also mean black and white. That can also mean gray. Like if you see on this option here, you see that this pigment, this is tilting towards red. It's tilting towards the gray part of red. Why? If we move this up here, we have a different shade of red. compared to yeah. We have different shades of red, right? That's for saturation. Now, value. Somebody was talking about value earlier when we talked about the principles and fundamentals. You mentioned value. This is where value comes into play because value talks about how dark or how light the color is. I know value sounds a bit closely related to his header brother here, saturation, but you can see that it's different. Saturation is just the color fading or the color being heavily saturated, vibrant. Value has a white and has a black at both ends and has a color in between. So as you can see here, red. If the red goes to, if the red moves to, let me see. If the red moves to here, it moves here. It has become an almost black but red, right? That becomes a very dark red. If it comes to somewhere around here, it's no longer going to be called red. It's either going to be called pink or something else, right? And the darker it gets, the name of the color changes. That's where you hear things like burgundy, wine. It gets darker. As it gets lighter, you have pink, fuchsia pink, coral pink, whitish pink, and it keeps going. And it gets to pastel. That's how value works. Okay? Now, hue is just another word for color. Saturation just shows you how vibrant the color is or how dull the color is. Okay? Value tells you how dark or how light the color is. I hope that is very clear. Now, creating color schemes. Now you're wondering, why do we have to create color schemes? You don't necessarily need to create color schemes, but they help you in picking or selecting colors to use. For the science students in our midst, you might be familiar with this, but this is design. So it's called color harmony. It's a formula. You can see hue, saturation, and value, right? When you put all together in a professional looking color scheme, they are actually tried and true formulas based on what we call color harmony. Color harmony uses the color wheel to illustrate time-tested color combinations. Did you see that word? Time-tested, which means it has been tried over time. Right? Now, one of them is monochromatic, which is actually my favorite. But that's mine. That's for me. You can have your own favorite, right? When we get there, you see all of them and you can pick which is your favorite. I saw somebody typing on the chat, color blocking. Please don't do color blocking in your design. Okay? Now, monochromatic colors. That's the use of one color or hue, remember, to create a monochromatic color scheme. All you just need to do is pick a color on the wheel, then use your knowledge of saturation and value to create variations. Remember when I said if it goes up, it gets darker. If it comes down, it gets brighter. Yeah, if it goes up, it gets more vibrant. If it comes down, it gets dull, which is desaturated. That's how this formula works. So you can see the color picked here is red, which is this guy. Then it goes all the way light and it starts having different. You see that? Now, the best thing about monochromatic color scheme is that they guarantee to match. You cannot go wrong with monochrome. I repeat, you cannot go wrong with monochrome because they are perfect. If I wear a dark green trouser and a teal green. Now, teal green, let me show you what teal green looks like. This is teal green this year. In fact, just look at this slide. Look at these two green colors up here. I'm wearing this as my shirt, and I'm wearing this as my trouser. Would you tell me I am color blocking or I'm being monochromatic? Of course, I'm being monochromatic. So the same thing applies in design. If I use this background and I use this for the text, it's obvious there's going to be a contrast because it should be clear to see, right? So, Olayemi, please refrain from touching your screen. You are drawing on my presentation. Thank you. Okay, now I said monochromatic are the easiest. It's very simple, actually. The next one is analogous. Now, if you go back and check that, you see the arrow is ticking on one color, right? When it comes to analog, it's picking 3 colors. Why? All it does is just to use colors that are close to each other. And they put them in a scheme. And that becomes a color scheme, right? Put them together and it becomes a color scheme. So you can decide to use red and orange, and yellow. That becomes a color scheme. Or green, blue, and a deep blue. That's a color scheme like what we have here. Now, analogous goes into more interesting. Now you see that it is still selecting the same 3 colors from before, and it gives a different result here. What happened? All that happened was what? Hue and value, saturation and value rather, because you pick the color, which is the hue, then you saturate and add value, and you get your results, a color scheme. This is green, this is green, this is blue, and this is blue. Blue, blue, green, green. And everything is fine, right? Now, complementary is the third one. Complementary simply suggests colors that are on opposite sides that complement each other. Black and white. Opposites, they complement. Right? Now, we're picking red and green to complement because they complement each other. And guess what? Just the way the color wheel is, every color that is opposite each other complements themselves very perfectly. Very perfectly. They complement themselves. Red and green, you see, that's what we use for Christmas. Christmas, in fact, is known for red and green. Everywhere you go is red. Everywhere you go is green. Even though people are starting to bring in blue and black and gold into Christmas. But then you get the idea. Now, this is a different shade. You know, I said if you reduce the saturation or increase the saturation, it changes the results. If you increase the value or reduce the value, it changes the result. Now we have here red, and then we have green, green, green for different shades, which means their names will change. Okay. Now, this is a split complementary. This is another technique or another form. Okay, can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, just signify or send an emoji. Okay, great. Great, great, great. You can hear me. Sorry, there was a glitch. Is sorted now. Okay. So split complementary just adds one more color to the colors that are complementary. So it's no longer a straight line. It becomes a form of a triangle. And like I said, it gives you more interesting results, right? Now, another formula is triadic, which is a perfect rectangle. A perfect rectangle, a perfect triangle, sorry. That's where the name comes from, triadic, triangle. So we'll pick green, we'll pick yellowish orange. No, that's orange. We pick orange, we pick purple, and green. Now, this is a perfect example. Everybody knows this character here, the Joker. The Joker is very good at combining colors. Yeah, he's very good at combining colors. You can see this. The triadic colors give us a perfect description of what the Joker wears. He just used three colors that are evenly spaced. What does that mean? They should be the line from orange to green should be the same line from green to purple and the same line from purple to orange, right? The combination tends to be very striking, especially when they include primary and secondary colors. So be mindful when you use them in your work. Be mindful. When you use any of these formulas, be mindful. Remember, when you use any of these formulas, be mindful. Okay? Okay, so there is also a formula called tetradic. This forms a rectangle. So it could go sideways, it could go horizontal or vertical, right? You can see four colors: purple, deep blue, orange, and yellow. Using not only one, but two complementary color pairs, orange and purple are complementary. Blue and yellow are very complementary, of course. So the formula works best if you let one color dominate while the others serves as accents. When you say accents, it means when they serve as a touch of each of them. You know, when you're going for an event, they say a touch of red. Does not mean you wear a red outfit. It means you wear black, or you wear a color that goes with red. You wear green, you wear blue, you wear yellow, and you just put a touch of red. Most people like to play it safe. They just wear black and put a red tie. or they put a brooch that is red. You get the idea. That's tetradic. One color needs to dominate. Okay. Okay. Now we've talked about monochromatic, analogous, complementary. That's 3. Split complementary is a part of complementary, so that's the 3. Then triadic, that's 4. Tetradic, which is 5 formulas in choosing color schemes for your work. Now, if these things get a bit overwhelming, do not despair. Why? There are websites that you could check already made color schemes from. So you don't have to start looking for the color schemes yourself or creating them. There are already made color schemes that you can pick from online. Okay? Now, trying to avoid common mistakes. There are a few mistakes that people make when it comes to color. Let me show you. Is this affecting your eyes like it's affecting mine? Yikes. Kind of painful, right? The solution is to tone it down. How do you tone it down? You adjust either the saturation or the value, which is adjusting the lightness or darkness of one of the colors. Then you get this. This is far better than this, right? That's far better. You see? Oh, somebody said I'm even looking away. Now you can imagine. It's my slide. I have to look at it. But you get the idea. It's a perfect example. Don't mix this kind of color together. If both are bright, there's trouble. One needs to be dark and the other bright. That is how color contrasting works. You see contrast in play again. That's how it works. That's how you create uniformity. Now, I have 2 websites on the screen. The same websites, but one of them has all the colors that you love. The other one has just a few of your favorite colors. Which one would you go for? Everybody's already loving the second one. No, the second one is mine. I'm giving every other person the first one. Exactly. Thank you, Juliet. Take the first one. Every other person, please take the first one. Second one is for the instructor. Thank you. Somebody's wondering, don't be wicked, don't be wicked. Okay, the problem why everybody's sitting towards the second one is because what? 1, readability. 2, legibility. 3, it is not painful to your eyes. But the first one, it's painful. Looking at it alone is disastrous. Everybody's still typing second. Somebody said the first one is for kids. Of course, they like plenty colors. Yeah. The left one is color riot. Very correct. That is why I kept hammering on the word less is more. Because more is not less, but less is more. If you put in all the colors out there, you get the option of A. But if you pick out specific colors and use them rightly, just like we've shown in the different formulas, you will get what we have on B. Okay? Somebody say don't overdo, don't add too much Maggi. Well, like my perfect example, too much salt in a spaghetti. You feel it. Now, choosing the right colors. I know I've shown you the monochromatic, analogous, tetradic, triadic, complementary colors. They help you choose, but then you also need to understand the tone of voice the tone of message of your project. If it's a business card for, let's say, a banker, the first option works, the second option works perfectly well, which is the option on the right. This one works perfectly well for the banker, right? Let's call it B. Let's call this A, right? Now, A works perfectly for a hair studio, a stylist, or should I say a fashion designer, a makeup artist. A would work perfectly in that category because this person is into styling. This person is into some plenty form of creativity and creative stuff. But the guy on B, if you give him the option of A as a as his own business card, if the guy does not understand anything about color and branding, he might be very happy with the plenty colors flying all over the place until he sees that he's not getting clients or clients are not calling him back. Then he'll come and fight you to explain what kind of design you did. Now, B is actually just one color, desaturated colors. So desaturated colors often appear more serious. And like I said, for organization, and I mentioned what? Banking. If you're an artist, you can spray the colors on your card, no problem. Because they have all the fun vibe and all the creative vibe of what you do, right? But option A and option B are not bad, but just know where they fit. All right. Okay. Now finding inspiration for colors. Remember, I mentioned that you don't have to necessarily create all the color schemes for yourself. That they are what? They are everywhere. You don't have to necessarily create them. They are everywhere. Now, this is a painting of flowers. And you can see on the right, we have 4 colors gotten from that. We have this color gotten from the floor. We have this gotten from here. We have this gotten from the grass. The blue gotten from the flowers. You see, like I said, there's color everywhere around you. You can pick colors from everything. In fact, if you're working with an image and you're thinking what background would fit that image, you can pick the color from the image to fit the background and it will blend perfectly well. Why? Because that color is already evident in the image. Okay? Now, this is what I was talking about when I said there are already existing websites that you go to that have color schemes created for you. You just go there, pick a color scheme, download it, and take it to your design software and pick and use the colors from there. Right? See, I know I've been talking about what you wear and how you pick your colors and color blocking, like somebody said. I think that was Peace. Peace said color blocking. So you can see this. When you see a person in these outfits, you just know that, oh, okay, this person carefully selected their outfit. But if you just carry yellow and you just carry purple, it still blends, right? But if you carry colors that don't complement each other or don't go well together, or you carry a bright green and carry bright red, there will be a shouting effect, which is bad. You need to tone one down so you can create contrast. One has to be bright, one has to be dark. That way you're creating contrast. Okay? That would be the end of colors. So Now we're open to taking your questions. Questions for, if you have a question, raise your hand and I will notify you to speak. If your network is having a glitch, okay, I'll display the website again. Here you go. If your network is having a glitch, just type your question in the chat and I will respond. Okay? So, Opeyemi. Okay, Opeyemi, go on.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Opeyemi.
So I
Your
wanted
name
to
and
ask
location.
about okay, my name is Opeyemi. Yes. So I wanted to ask about the difference between complementary and split complementary. I didn't really get the concept.
Okay, the difference between complementary and split complementary. Okay.
Split
So there's
complementary.
okay. So there's actually not much difference because it's all under complementary. The reason split complementary is different. So complementary uses just two colors that are opposite each other, but split complementary adds one more color that is close. And I said it uses a form of a triangle, not a perfect triangle, because triadic uses a perfect triangle. Okay, that's why you see that it's the longer version of a triangle. That's just the difference. Split adds one more color and makes it three colors, but complementary itself is just two colors. Okay, I hope you get that now. Okay, David Tom says, when using tetradic colors, can it be any four color or four colors bound in a rectangle? Yes, they have to be. The reason for the rectangle is to show that they complement each other, which means you cannot just carry the rectangle and put anywhere else. That doesn't work. You cannot just force the rectangle, or you cannot just pick four colors that don't. Do you get? So it has to be in that it's bound. That rectangle is what helps you to decide what goes and what doesn't. Okay. Okay, Adela, you have a question. You can type it if your internet is bad.
Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Can you
Yes,
hear me?
go on. I can hear
My
you.
name is Adiola. Yesterday you said something about using lines to draw. So I would like to know before I dive into graphic design, because I don't know how to draw anything. Would that be a problem?
No. So, I said drawing or illustration. So for when it comes to graphic design, drawing is not a criteria. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to know how to draw. Just be able to scribble your own ideas the way you feel like. As long as you understand it and on your design, it comes out perfectly well. No problem. You're good. Okay. So, Ayo, go on.
So the what's it called? This tetradic, can it
Yes,
be
tetradic.
irregular can it be irregular rectangle, or it has to be, as in using the color wheel? Will it be irregular,
Okay.
or it must be irregular?
So let me draw another triangle on this. Now, I'll be rectangle. Watch this. I come down this way to blue. I come down to this guy, yellowish green, and I go back up to deep orange. So it can be this way. It can be this way. It can also be this way. Do you get? You can
Okay.
also be this way. Okay.
All right.
All right. So Lukman, go on.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
Please, sir, can you explain more on the difference between saturation and value?
Sorry, are you close to a fan or are you on the road? I'm getting a lot of feedback from you. Could you? Okay, you know what? Just type your question in the chat. I will answer it. Okay. Kabiesi, yes, you want to speak? Go on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So these colors now, I just want to ask, are this specific usage for them? Like, is it just something you can use? Because they don't look like, especially those the one that you showed that has that clown
Joker.
head of, yes. So I'm not sure there are
That's
colors that can be used for daily basis designs, you know.
Okay. So I mentioned that when I was talking about typography, I mentioned that you select a font based on the language of your communication. Same thing applies to color. You pick a color based off of what you're trying to communicate because colors have emotions. Okay? So this clown you see here is a clown. And obviously, this color fits a clown perfectly. But if you use these colors in the right way, they can also work for your design, depending on the kind of design you're doing. So it's totally dependent on the kind of design you are doing. All right. Okay. Lukman says, explain the difference between value and saturation. Okay. So value and saturation are very easy concepts and they are both distinct. They are not as closely related as hierarchy and emphasis or contrast and the likes, right? Value is how dark a color is or how light a color is. Now, let's say we have red, right? If the red becomes very dark, what has happened? The value has either increased or reduced. So it becomes a very dark red, which could be wine color, which could be burgundy, which could be deep brown, right? Now, if the color is very light and it goes close to white, remember this color is red and it goes close to white, it becomes pastel pink, right? Now, that's for value. For saturation, saturation just tells how vibrant it is. Let me give you a perfect example. Come back to this. This design that is painful to the eyes is using a highly saturated color for the background. The blue is highly saturated. That is why the text looks like it's fighting your eyes. Now, this blue here is not saturated. What happened to it? The value of this blue reduced. That made it to be darker. The value makes it darker. Saturation makes it vibrant, brighter. Value reduces the what's that word now? Value reduces the intensity of the color. Okay? It's either it's too light and it's going into white, or it's too dark and it's going into black. That's value. Saturation is brightness and dullness of a color, which is called highly saturated or desaturated. So it can be brighter or richer, or it's desaturated. Desaturated means it's cheating towards being gray. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Can you touch a bit more on the introductory part of color? Okay, then Justin says, can you explain more on analogous? I do not get it. Okay, so let's go to the introductory part. I said color is everywhere. And I said color plays a vital role in every part of our lives. Color can trigger an emotional response. That is why I used the example of your favorite eatery, the restaurant you like so much. They use red and yellow. And I told you what red and yellow does. Red and yellow communicates emotions. They drag your attention. They stimulate hunger. So you see red and yellow and you're now thinking, I had that chicken the last time. It made a lot of sense. And you're hungry for more chicken. You go in there and spend your transport money on chicken. After eating chicken, you realize you have to get home. Now you're wondering what the problem is. Is it color or is it chicken? I hope that's clear. But okay, good. This person said, okay, Justin, analogous. Comfort, I hope you got that clear now. Now, to this question, right? Analogous are colors that are close to each other. In fact, I think analogous and monochromatic are the simplest formulas in choosing colors, because you could just see there are a lot of colors close to each other here. You just pick three that are side by side of themselves, and you have analogous. What happens here on this other slide is we see the colors desaturated. Okay, that's just it. It is saturated. Is that clear? Good. Okay, more questions? More questions, more questions. Adewale Adeinka, you have a question? Okay. I remember yesterday while we were talking about the fundamentals of color, somebody mentioned that I should use somebody mentioned that I should use a birthday design to portray an example, right? So I brought a lot of birthday designs to show you today. But before then, let's see. Will this class be available on the WhatsApp group later? Yes, it will. You talked about fonts are being created by humans. So how do we create our own fonts? Okay, it's a process, right? It's a process. You have to first draw the fonts on paper, then you take it into a software to create. You have to create each letter and make sure they are. So we can talk about that by the end of the old training. Okay, just remind me. All right, Justin, just remind me. We'll go into details on how to create fonts. But I must tell you, it's a process and it takes dedication to create one. All right. Okay, so any more questions before I go into the birthday designs to show you guys what is font? Font is typeface. Typeface is the use of text. Did I answer your question? And fonts have types, and types of fonts, good. Types of fonts include the serif, sans serif, and the likes. Peter Abiodun says, talking about bright color, what formula fits bright color? So the thing is not to use bright colors everywhere. The idea is to use a bright color and a dark color. Check the color wheel. You see that these colors complement themselves. They are dark and light. That's why we have value and we have saturation. Saturation is used to increase the brightness of the color, while value is used to increase and talk about the lightness or the darkness, not bright. Remember, when something is light, it's different from when it's dark. When red becomes light red, it's no longer light red. It becomes purple. Did I say purple? Sorry. It becomes pink. When it becomes dark red, it goes into deep brown, deep reddish brown, or burgundy and the likes. That is how value works. That is how the formula works. Okay, just these are the formulas: monochrome, analogous, complementary, split complementary, triadic, and tetradic. And I just showed you how you can just draw the triangle in different sides. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle yet. Okay. I'm sure I've answered you, Peter. Okay, so now let's quickly check on those birthday designs. Now, this is a birthday design, right? And the person that asked that question yesterday wanted me to explain principles and fundamentals in birthday designs, which I think is like every other design. You can see, that was you, Adiola, very good. So now you can see the use of rule of third where the pictures are. Rule of third on one side of the image. And you can also see the use of hierarchy. The first thing you see is a name, Ibukun Awoshika. Then the next thing you see is happy birthday. Then the other text that comes up and every other thing. Hierarchy. Right? You can also see texture in the background. The background has texture and it also has patterns. You can see patterns. Then you can see white lines everywhere and white space. Exactly. You can see white space too. There's white spaces all over this place. There's white space. Yes. So, and there's form. You can see shadow. Right? Now, see another design. You can see texture. You can see form. You can see line. You can see balance. You can see hierarchy, the way the name and the event, the titles, asymmetrical balance. Perfectly, Lukman. Very good. Very good. Asymmetrical balance, where the image is on one side, the text on the other side. Not having the image up and the text underneath, which makes everything rule of thirds. Exactly. I like the fact that you guys are in this class. The idea of not having too much on the design is white space. That's what white space does for you, right? This is another design. This is very simple and has no plenty text, and this uses symmetrical balance. So you see, symmetrical balance is not so bad after all. And there's a lot of white space. My favorite thing, lots of white space. It's balanced, it has contrast, it has white space, there's shape, very good. Yes, symmetrical balance, like I said. There's shape. Now, also look at the font combinations. Look at the font combinations. There's patterns, nice one. Look at the font combinations. As you're looking at the designs for the principles and the fundamentals, also take note of the font combinations as well as the colors. This is a perfect example of monochromatic. This is monochrome. This is a monochromatic design. From the colors of his skin to the colors of his clothes to the colors on the design, everything is monochromatic. Right here, we have yellow, we have green, and we have brown. We have a touch of red. Those are, you can now look at the name Ibukun Awoshika. That is a serif font. I think it was Rebecca that was asking. Ibukun Awoshika, that's a serif font. Okay? That's a serif font right there. So just see everything that we've touched on. Principles, fundamentals, typography, and color. See everything in play. Remember, the graphic designer is the eye of the community, which means you are supposed to look and see different from what other people see, right? This is another design right here. Okay, this design here is not a birthday design, but I wanted to show you the use of color and the font and image. This is a symmetrically balanced design, and you can see the font. Remember, I was talking about long fonts and shorter fonts. I was talking about combining fonts. You can see a script font and a sans serif font as the title. So now, this is another design here. Rule of thirds, pattern, texture, white space, asymmetrical. Exactly. Now, see the name. To His Excellency, that's a short text. See the other name, Mohammed Buhari. That's a longer font, sorry. Long font and short font. Long font for the name, short font for the title. This is sans serif. Okay? I think I have one more example. Okay, this one is very popular. Now, this goes to play along. You can see hierarchy. Very good one, Alayemi. Very good. Hierarchy. And you can also see the name. Davido is a point of focus. It has a different color entirely. You can see white lines. Good. You can see the shapes. You can see icons. You can see images. Emphasis. Yes, very good. I think I have one more. Texture. Very good as well. Texture pattern. Display fonts. Absolutely. Rule of thirds. Asymmetric balance choice, contrast on Happy Mother's Day, and also hierarchy on Happy Mother's Day, and also emphasis. And there's contrast in the colors from the color of our clothes to the color of the background, and it's also asymmetric. Yes, there's a little bit of shadow. You're right. Let me see. I think I have one more. You can see this. Short fonts and long fonts. Remember, there is shadow. Good. There is form. There is texture, repetition. Very good, Ajibade. Nice one. There's repetition. There's shape. You see the January 15th, there's like a circle. Yes, a lot of white space. I told you white space is like my favorite thing to do. I'm a very big fan of white spaces, textures and shape. Very good. Let me see. I must still have one more. Oh, okay. Font combination, choice of colors, texture, the fundamentals, hierarchy, lines, shapes, form, texture, balance. This is also a symmetrical arrangement. Thank you, Shibike. You can also see lines. Very good. Let me see. Do I have one more? Yeah? You see? This is also, what is it called now? Asymmetric. This is also asymmetric. And it has, you can see hierarchy. You can see pattern. You can see repetition. You can see texture. Very good comfort. You can see texture. Yeah, hierarchy. Lines, patterns. Nice. Repetition, of course. And you can see the choice of colors as well. Choice of font. Now, remember serif? The name Pastor E.A. Adeboye was designed, was you a serif font was used for that name. The serif font. This is a script font. This is a serif, sans serif. Yes, monochromatic. Yes, this is very monochromatic. Thank you. Yeah, I think that should be okay. So I think I've explained all we've learned in these few designs that I've showed you. And I'm glad that everyone here has shown that they understand, they see these things differently now. So, Idris, you have a question. I think that will be the last question before we call it a day. That will be the last question.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you so much,
for your
Olayemi. Go
wonderful
on.
section. Thank you so much for your wonderful section. So I have just one
Thank you.
question. Can
Go
a
on.
test be a serif and display at the same time?
Okay. Your example is in this slide. Look at the
Yes,
slide.
like this is the hand now, for example.
That
Same
is it.
same with that Pastor E Adeboye as well. It looks like both a serif and a display font at the same time.
Okay. No, that font is different. That font, that's how it is. But this one has, there are three fonts here. This is the end you're looking at. There are three fonts. P and E and N are display fonts, which are Old English. H and D are also display fonts, which are serifs. They are, this is blue stripe. Then E and E, they are sans serif. That's Leroy. Okay. So yes, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. And this will be the end of the session for today. So for tomorrow, we'll talk about layout and composition and how to decide and get the best images for your designs. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The WhatsApp link will be shared. The WhatsApp link will be shared. Thank you very much. The WhatsApp link will be shared. Okay. All right. Miss Shidima has some information for you guys. So she'll come up now. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good day.
All right, thank you too.
Yeah, you didn't work from home, but you just came to work here. Yeah, I think you didn't work from home, but just came to work here.
Hi everyone. How has been the class today?
That's wonderful.
You get
Very,
value
very
for your
great.
time?
It was
You get
great.
value?
Good. Yes.
Yes, we
Did you
enjoyed
get
it.
value?
Yeah, we
Awesome.
did.
All right. So thank you for joining in today. Like we mentioned yesterday, we'll send another batch of emails out today. So please be on the lookout. Make sure our email is saved in your address book so it doesn't go to your spam. But if you wait after a while and you don't get it by evening, please check your spam to confirm that the email did not drop in the spam. So we'll send out emails now dividing every participant into two cohorts, like I mentioned, where we have a batch of 100 people in cohort 1, another batch of people in cohort 2. That way you get access to your timetable schedule. That's for the physical class starting next week. So you get access to the timetable, you get access to the details of what time to come in, and then what time the classes will be ending. Then afterwards, we'll also divide ourselves into another WhatsApp group that has the port 1, port 2. Some of us try to join in, but if you notice, you've not been given access because we have not shared you. So after today, that will be done. So please be on the lookout for it and then also participate, all right? So as usual, we'll drop the details of today's class and notes in the group, and then any other information will be dropped on the general group. So thank you for joining in. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye from our own end.
All right, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, man.